Welcome, football fans. Buckle up for another hard-hitting episode of Player 54 Podcast, an independent show focused solely on alternative and opportunity football. From a sunny Southwest Florida studio, here is your host, Michael Lathrop.
Hello, football fans. This is episode 142, CoFL plants flag in the DFW. Welcome back to another episode of Player 54 Podcast. Today, we welcome Braves managing partner Justin Golson to discuss his team, the decision to join the Continental Football League, and more. Welcome, Justin. I appreciate taking the time to appear on the show to discuss the reintroduced Braves, joining the Continental Football League, and possibly more.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. We're doing some really exciting things with the league, and I appreciate you having me on the show to discuss it. Yeah.
You're welcome. This has kind of been a long time coming for you and I. We have been in contact a little bit before, and we just never got to the point to actually doing anything with some of your other endeavors. But I don't want to make it about them. So it is a pleasure. It truly is, because we both have ties back to the CNY. And
Yep.
That's pretty cool, even though we're in different places now. But that's a pretty cool connection, whether, we didn't really know each other. But
Absolutely. I seen that 315 number, and I thought you were in the city. I thought that was the coolest thing. So, yeah.
315, man. And not of the Utica, but of the Syracuse origin, right? That's what's really cool about it. So,
Yeah.
But before we dive into this recent announcement, I believe it would be beneficial to provide those tuning in with a little bit of your brief background about yourself, your introduction into football, and the experiences that you've had within football. So can you take a moment to do so?
Right. So, obviously, like a lot of football junkies, football starts at an early age, right? So we played all the way through high school. I was more coming out of high school, I was more pursuing basketball. But when I got into coaching, football was definitely higher on my passion list. So we started in development. I was working with some high school kids, and then I started working with some semi-pro and college organizations, in their film room and whatnot. Along the way, I started working with a three-star out of Tennessee, a quarterback, and I went to one of his games to film it, scout him, and I came across a kid by the name of Damian Byford. He played on the other team, and he was a little bit undersized. But I mean, he was FCS ready. He's a baller. He's still playing now. He's a baller, Damian Byford. So after the game, the team I was there to support and film, they ended up winning 3-star. He didn't have the greatest game. I was kind of like, you got the 3-star, verbal to Memphis. He's supposed to be the guy. And I see this with nobody's mentioning. I see this kid under the radar, Damian Byford. So I was asked to come coach a minor league football team, and I recruited my offense around Damian Byford. That organization 2 weeks before kickoff, a week and a half before kickoff, it collapsed. So I recruit 25, 30 guys on the offensive side of the ball. I felt obligated to make sure these guys had a season. And that's how the Tennessee Hornets brand was launched. A week and a half before kickoff, we turned that team into a 5-5 team. We exited in the first round of the playoffs. It was a success. We were able to build onto that. We were able to get better players through our, recruiting, and we were able to build a substantial pipeline to higher paying leagues. So obviously, I'm not going to mention the league's name, but last summer, we had 16 players on that roster that ended up signing, pretty good contracts, whether that was arena ball or overseas or even here in the States, right? So this year, the Hornets, we continued that. But we stayed in touch with the leadership of the Continental Football League. And behind the scenes, we've been talking with them and making sure that we can make this happen. So
no two pathways are the same, Justin, right? Everybody comes from a different, you can get to the same place, but the avenues, it's like, those forks in the road, but there's not just one fork, there's multiple forks. So I know you kind of shared a brief background there, and you even mentioned the COFL. Can you walk us through the process? Because, your Hornets, you were talking about relocating them, right? Your social media things have been
Mm-hmm.
out there, right? Kind of teasing is Oklahoma, Florida, Texas. But can you walk us through the process of when the idea to actually launch a professional team came about and why you believe this particular period in time is the correct moment to resurrect the Braves in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex?
Right. So, like I said, we've been talking to the league, the guys who run the league. I connected with Manny a little over a year ago. So the Continental Football League wasn't new to us. We've been very in tune with the updates and what's going on with that. So one thing that we've noticed is the historic brands that come with the Continental Football League, and all of them haven't been taken yet. So obviously you have 4 teams in the North, and the league was searching for that 4th team in the South. So when the opportunity presented itself, we talked about a number of brands. It was mentioned bringing the Hornets in, but I think we were more aligned of going with the historic brand that was already known in the DFW area, which, was the Fort Worth Braves back when the Continental League was open. So the DFW market is you have 7 million people there. So there's a lot to go around. I think there's plenty of room at the table. Yeah.
Well, those that are tuning in will probably crucify me if I don't address the elephant in the room. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously are going to be the Braves, and we are purposely discussing the Braves and not the Fort Worth Braves right now, right? And because you just alluded to the old, branding, the old team that has historical significance. So fans are going to want me, to ask the question, why are we announcing the Braves in the broad metropolitan area? And what is delaying whether it's going to be Fort Worth, Dallas, Arlington, that city, or even Texas Braves, right? As state,
Mm-hmm.
as we see so many teams announced being attached to this team. So the elephant's there, right? We're announcing something kind of broad, but obviously there's something at play. Justin, what can you tell those that are curious about that?
Well, I wouldn't call it an elephant in the room. I would call it a valid question that needs an answer, right?
Right.
So, I'm saying DFW right now because I don't want to show too much of our hand, but the goal is to bring a good product to the fans, right? So one thing you just said, we alluded with the other things I've done. We don't show all our hand at one time, right? We want to keep everybody engaged. We want to keep them guessing. But what I can tell you is we're pretty close to a deal with a pretty nice stadium. Be one of the nicest in the league. As you know, there's tons of stadiums all around, but we don't want to pinpoint a location too soon, because that might not be the best thing to do.
Well, we have learned with other leagues when they announce a particular pinpoint, like putting that pin prick, not just in a state, but a particular city, and they don't have venues locked in, where all of a sudden agreements get harder and harder because, well,
No.
now
No.
it could be
We
a
already
negotiation.
have some.
Right.
Yeah, we're already in the negotiation phase. The check mark is that we have a stadium. It's all good.
Okay. Well,
It's all
to
good.
be, announced soon, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So you've been in discussions with the Continental Football League, right? Dating back, however long, right? The initial ideas before it gets, announced to the league back in September. So what about the COFL did you find appealing and ultimately swayed you in pursuing the COFL as the league to join versus the other leagues operating within the space?
Okay. Well, let's start at the top. All right. You have Mike Kelly, the commissioner, and as you know, he's had a number of stops, and they've been some pretty good ones. He's done the pro gig, he's done the college way. He's well known throughout. So I know he wouldn't launch anything he doesn't believe in, right? And then when you take a step down from there and you go to from the commissioner to a team owner, and you go to Manny, same thing, offensive pioneer, great owner that I've seen firsthand. He runs a pretty nice program. And then, you look across the way into the next division, and Stan Bedwell's crushing it in San Antonio. The Turos are looking pretty nice. They're getting some talent through there. The coaching is substantial, right? And then the most underrated piece to this is Coach Champagne. We kind of, everybody talks coaching trees. He won a championship with the Huntsville Rockets. I have time with the Huntsville Rockets. So there's familiarity there throughout, right? So the Caps just got a really nice coach. So, there's trust there. There's familiarity there. And what we want to do is build an organization that represents the league well. That's what our job is to do. And that's what we're going to do. Everything else we feel around us is complete.
You mentioned earlier that the DFW metropolitan area, the Metroplex, depending on how you want to word it, has 7 million people, and there's enough to go around. Mm-hmm. Right. The DFW is also home to multiple professional football teams. Mm-hmm. Why do you believe it can house and support another team? And how do you plan to differentiate the Braves from those others to get those individuals that would be potentially interested in actually supporting you?
Well, first and foremost, I believe the Continental Football League has its own way. So with the Continental shift and the roster makeups, it's going to be hard to be a copycat league from the jump, right? But to answer your question, football is America's game, right? Isn't that what we call it? It's America's game. So I don't know how many people are in the U.S., but it's America's game. And Texans, they swear that Texas is almost its own country, right? If you go to Texas, there's no reason to go anywhere else, right? So you have 7 million. You have America's game in a place, Texas, that Texans believe is their own country. And then you have a market that would, I would say Dallas thinks they're the marquee city in Texas, correct? So you have 7 million people. You have a team that's said, this is the market. We trust our team. This is the market, DFW. We have a nice stadium. We have the pieces in place. We have all the pieces. How could it not go right? How could it not go right? We're not trying to be the NFL. We're competing in our own way, right? We're going to fill the stands. We're going to have some good food. We're going to have some good, barbecue, and we're going to create that Braves brand that's unmissable, right?
No, it's fair. It's like you mentioned, state of Texas. Football's a religion. It's different down there, and I'm not saying it's not different in other parts of the country because there's a lot of football states, but it is. And I think it is a wise decision to focus on a division. And I know everyone's like, well, Texas gets everything, whether it was, 2 teams in the NFL that have, multiple teams that were in the XFL when it came back in 2023 and then into the UFL. But I mean, I get it, but it's a state that is hungry for football. And you're right.
They're starving for football. They're starving.
Yeah. Friday Night Lights is a real thing down there. And I'm not saying football isn't important in other parts of the country, but there's a reason why certain things come out of Texas. I get it.
Off topic question, right? Do you prefer the series or the movie?
I didn't really get into the series. I did watch the movie, and that's when I think of Friday Night Lights, I think about the movie. Okay. It's funny because my younger brother watched the series, and he got into it. I think it probably outlived what it probably should have in his mind, but he used to love it early on. But when I picture Friday Night Lights, not just when I think of high school football, but I think of the movie more than anything.
Yeah, I got you.
All right, so the Braves are the final COFL team to be announced here and will be participating in the inaugural, or let's say reintroduced 2026 season, because it's been a number of years since the league has, kicked, played a game, thrown a ball. Your fellow South Division rivals, the San Antonio Toros, the Tall City Black Gold, and Texas Syndicate, all have a jump on the Braves. Right? I'm not going to act like years. You're not an expansion team, but you're all into it for year one. But how do you plan to shore up the gap to get the organization up to speed?
Well, we've been playing summer ball. You have spring league, and we've been playing summer ball, so we're used to recruiting in tight windows as it is. But we're not behind the ball. We're announcing this now. We've been working behind the scenes for some time. So the players, we have a great pipeline. The players, coaches, nationwide, worldwide. So we're not behind as far as that at all. We need to get boots on the ground, and boots will be on the ground within the next couple weeks. And then from there, we'll get the players in, and we'll start practicing, and we'll start building this powerhouse from the ground up. Yeah.
All right, so you mentioned the boots are going to be on the ground the next couple of weeks. So that's where probably fans, of the league and those that are probably going to be potential fans for you, right? They'd be interested, and they're going to be like, okay, how soon can we get some announcements, right? Those are the type of things. You get your brand, right? But then it's head coach, coordinators, first player signings. How soon do you anticipate that happening?
When boots hit the ground, we start marching. All right. So you've been watching how I move. We move at
Right.
a pretty good pace. One thing that I always tell my players, when I was coaching, because I'll be moving more into a front office role, but coaching Oregon offense, Marcus Mariota, everything is tempo, on and off the field. Oregon offense, Marcus Mariota, 15, 20 seconds, which is going to be great because when we hit that fourth quarter, it's 3 downs in 20 seconds. So
Right.
it's no longer an option. It's a must. So we have to get that mentality. 2 months doesn't sound like a lot of time, but when you've been working before the 2 month marker, 2 months is a lot of time. So we'll be very prepared, and we'll be very successful.
I don't know how I want to word this one, to be honest with you, but players, right? You have players that you've coached for a while, players that you've scouted, but this is a step up, right? So it's not to take a shot at anything that you've done in the past, but everything is about, and we hear Coach Manny Matsakis keeps telling his guys as he interviews them on his own show, what we play next year, but this is going to be, last year. Now, this year, it's going to be a step up the competition. So looking at that, what type of players, and what can people expect from this type of team that you're building now, right? It's easy to take a look at what you've done in the past. What can they anticipate to expect from this Braves team that you're putting together versus trying to look back and be, okay, I get an idea, because everyone's stepping up, everyone's elevating. So what can you tell those people? What is the Braves going to be? What kind of organization? What type of team are they hitting on the field? What can they come to expect from the Braves?
I heard a quote not too long ago, and I'm probably not going to say it right, but you'll get the gist. The best indicator of the future is the past. So, again, we're coming from enforcing structure where there is no structure. All right. You can expect a lot of speed. You can expect a lot of speed on the offensive side of the ball. You can expect pressure and intensity on the defensive side of the ball, and you can expect longevity with the coaching staff. All right, we're going to bring guys in that are on the coaching staff that are going to be Braves, ideally Braves for I hate to say life, because there's opportunities that are going to come from this, but
Sure.
Your coaching staff is going to be here for a while, and your players are going to be here for a while, or you're going to be seeing them on Sundays pretty soon. And that's just the bottom line. You can expect an organization that's going to work with the youth in the community You can expect a great game day atmosphere, great food, and outside of football, you can expect to see us in the community. Like I said, we're gonna be very hands-on, and when the boots hit the ground, we're gonna start marching. All right. So I know it sounds like it's coming out of left field to everybody who's going to be watching this, but this thing has been handpicked from the top, man. So we're just so excited. The players are going to be very blessed with this opportunity, and coming into year 2, everybody's going to be trying to get in, right? So you can expect to have fun. I guess that if you had to sum it up in one word, fun.
Yeah, no, that's pretty exciting. So before I let you go, Justin, I think it's important to give you an opportunity to share something that we haven't discussed, right? It's easy for somebody to ask a pinpointed question, right, and just get an answer back. But there's obviously things attached to the organization that you believe is important for those fans and the football community at large to know about the DFW Braves and the Continental Football League as you prepare for 2026. What would those be? Here's your moment to get up on your soapbox and
Ask this question one more time. I'm sorry.
what is there's got to be something that you think is a key or very important that we have not touched on, right? So is there something kind of in your mind you're like, okay, I think this is very important for our potential fans and fans of the league to know as we prepare for 2026?
This is community. This is built for the community, for the fans, right? This is just as much a part. Excuse me. This is just as much about the fans as it is the players, as it is the league. It takes everybody coming together to make this successful. But I think that this is before its time. It's hard to, I don't want to come off anything other than humble, right? But all the pieces are there. Come May, by the end of July, there's going to be no doubt that this thing is a success. So everybody is confident, North Division, South Division. I think the way that this is the most successful for us is if we see that team in the North that everybody is favoring and we put it on them. I think that's what's going to make this thing the most successful.
It's interesting you mentioned who everyone's favoring. I think it's always easy to pinpoint a team early. And this is the interesting part to me is that the curtain now it's open, right? Before it felt like we're on the Price is Right, behind door 1, door 2, right? We were getting shown one thing at a time. Well, now we have all 8, right? The divisions are set, 4 in the South, 4 in the North. And I think it's easy to assume early on a certain team, right, might have been the pinnacle. And I'm not taking a shot at them because I was no different thinking that, Justin. But I also believe that as we see things and we start looking at some of the teams, the markets now, it'd be interesting to see how those markets have. But now you start seeing who's at the helm, right? A Coach Mummy, Kazor, right? I mean, some of these people have some deep connections. We just haven't seen signings yet. So what we don't know what we're going to see once those rosters start getting built. So it's easy to take a look at what you see that has been on the field before and how it dominated. But even Coach Matt Sakis is saying this is going to be different this year. So I see things, coming out of the Toros, and it's easy to sit there and say, well, that's, possibly the top one. But you haven't started building a roster yet, and Tall City Black Gold are very early in their process of just releasing things. So it's going to be interesting. It's easy to put a bullseye on somebody, but it could be too premature for that. I think sometimes it's a true. And we all know the game's not won on paper, right? There's a lot of paper champions out there that don't make it when the trophy is actually turned over. So that's very interesting. But
football is 4 quarters. And you're absolutely right. A lot of times, it's rare when you pick a preseason favorite and they actually execute, So, I'm a Giants fan. So in my lifetime, I've seen 2 Super Bowls. And I want to say both years, at some point in the season, it was looking like we weren't going to make the playoffs. So um, you got to play the game 4 quarters. You got to play the game the whole season. You got to finish strong even when you don't make it, because that leads into the next season, right? But, just like you're saying, some of the favorites might not be at the top at the end. You name some names, but I didn't hear the Braves come out your mouth. So
Well, because it's
look for
early.
the
Like that's why I'm saying that. I'm keeping it real,
absolutely.
right? It's early, and it's easy to put some things out there that look like the bullseye, the target for whoever. But it's it is premature because we haven't seen one player announced yet for your staff. We haven't seen a player announced yet for Indianapolis or Michigan, right? It's just too soon to start seeing, and even the what handful of players we see from Tall City, it's just a handful. We got to see how the rest of that roster builds out. Those we don't know, right? It's easy to be like, okay, that's the first building block, and we've seen, as you alluded to, teams that may have not have been, the Patriots. They were undefeated until they lost to the Giants, right, in the Super Bowl. But also, you got to look at the years that it's the teams that have won some Super Bowls. It wasn't even where their starting quarterback, right? It took their backup to do it. So
Philly did it,
the
right?
roster's
Exactly.
not one or two players because one, health, is that person going to be there? Look at the Buffalo Bills in the '90s, the biggest comeback in NFL history, being a playoff game with their backup quarterback over the Oilers, right, with Frank Wright.
Hmm.
So it's interesting stuff. I get it. So it's just too soon. We got to see rosters, but then we got to see how that chemistry comes together. So I'm with you. There's a lot.
Exactly.
It's easy to look at things, but
You can have all the talent in the world sometimes. Sometimes, and all the talent. An example would be Florida State right now, what they're going through. Everybody, is criticizing them, and sometimes things just don't go your way. Sometimes you just have you're a couple plays short, and it makes the whole Clemson, it makes the whole season look bad, right? Trust the process. Football is football. You, you can only have one winner at the end of the game, right?
right.
But the game doesn't always establish who's a winner and who's a loser. There's plenty of guys who don't have Super Bowls who might not even went to the Hall of Fame, but they're still talked about. I don't know. I don't want to get too off topic, but definitely we're in agreement there.
Gotcha. Well, Justin, I appreciate taking the time to appear on the show, discuss your resurrected Braves and the Continental Football League with me. The league and your organization have, I think it's about 4 months right now as you guys prepare to kick off in May. And I wish you and to be, the to be fully branded Braves in league, the best of luck. Health, luck, all of it, right? Sometimes you don't know what comes. I mean, heck, back in 2019 going into 2020, there's a new league kicking off, and a pandemic came. So when I mean luck, I don't necessarily mean it's the foreseen, it's the unforeseen that come, right? Things can
Mhm.
happen in the blink of an eye. So perhaps down the road, though, if the time allows for it and you have interested, I'd love to have you come back so we can discuss the state of the Braves
Oh,
and how the
absolutely.
Continental Football League season went. Yeah,
Absolutely. And again, I thank you for having me on. Great platform, good conversation. I hope I answered your questions you know, to satisfaction. But yeah, we're excited and we're going to bring something that the fans can be proud of to the DFW area. The stadium will be announced shortly. The players will follow soon afterwards, and our coaching staff has pretty much been picked out. So you're going to be getting all these updates fast, and then we're going to be in the community before we even kick off with a full roster, with a full staff, and you know it's expected for us to be in the same conversation as the top teams the whole way through. So year one is going to be great. We'll connect again for sure. Looking forward to that, and we appreciate you for having us on today.
well, thank you. Before you go, how can people that are interested in learning more, because right, there's just more to come. This is the cat's
Mm-hmm.
out of the bag, but you got coaches to announce, players to announce, venue, all schedule, all that stuff. Where can those that want to follow the Braves, where can they do so to keep up to date on the team as it prepares for kickoff?
So With the Hornets, I controlled all of that. Did all the, but with this, we have a team that handles all of that. So they're already full launch phase. All those socials will, you'll have these, put them on here. All the handles, the website. But we have a website, we have our Instagram, we have our X, I almost said Twitter. You'll be able to find us everywhere. And then we'll be within the city as well. So we'll be highly visible.
Would it be safe to assume that it's probably going to follow the format of other teams at CoFL and then Braves?
There you go.
That'd probably be it. Okay, there you go. All right. So now you got it, everyone. So perfect. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You as well. With today's announcement, the Continental Football League have finalized their 8 teams for the 2026 season. Now is where we'll see what the CoFL will become, as the league and its teams can now shift their entire focus on building rosters and individual organization operation. The table is stacked, and I'm excited to finally be able to enjoy some CoFL action beginning in May. That concludes another show. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to having everyone back soon for an all-new episode of Player 54 Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into today's show. You can support the show and our partners by using code PLAYER54 at checkout at any of the following websites: RoyalRetros.com, where you can save 15%, TrueVictory.com, where you can save 15%, BuckedUp.com, where you can save 20%, ImpactMouthguards.com, where you can save 10%, HobbyArmor.com, where you can save 5%, JustMeatJerky.com, where you can save 10%. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe and rate Player 54 Podcast on your platforms of choice. Do you have a question or topic you would like to have discussed on the show? Message us via social media or send an email to player54podcast@gmail.com.